I worked at a dog daycare with 50-plus dogs per shift, no training, and managers dismissing dangerous behavior. Is this normal? I feel overwhelmed. The dog daycare where I am employed has so many staff members who manage the chaos that I wonder if I am being overly dramatic. However, there are numerous evident issues that I believed were clear, and I would appreciate any insights, advice, or assistance. To clarify my experience, I will describe a typical day we arrive uncertain of how many workers we will have on hand. Generally, there are more than 50 dogs with only 4 personnel in the facility. One staff member cares for the larger and more energetic dogs, while another attends to the smaller breeds and the calmer or shyer larger dogs. On a hectic day, one person may supervise over 20 dogs, and I've been informed that during the summer, this figure can rise to approximately 40. There is a spacious indoor play area divided by a 4-foot-high yellow barrier, with one side designated for the larger dogs and the other for the smaller ones. The outdoor sections for the dogs are separated by chain-link fencing, enabling the larger and smaller dogs to see each other and engage in fence fighting. One worker typically manages the desk to monitor the dogs arriving and departing, while another cleans the boarding kennels and washes the dishes. Our hours are from 8 a.m. to noon, followed by a 2-hour break, and then we return from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. to break up dog fights and protect oneself. We use a long walking stick as our primary tool. I will outline some of the challenges I have encountered at this locally owned dog daycare since I started one. Management, the head manager, who is close friends with the owner, is not held accountable for his responsibilities. He exhibits sexist behavior, referring to tasks like washing dog dishes and gardening as women's work, which he refuses to undertake. He is also prone to explosive outbursts, slamming doors hard enough to break them, only to blame others and neglect to fix what he damages. He frequently leaves early despite having incomplete tasks. Additionally, he did not provide any training for me, despite assuring one of my coworkers that he would. There is also a new assistant manager who was hired shortly before my arrival, and he did not train her either. He lacks appropriate dog handling skills, and when he becomes frustrated with uncooperative dogs, he drags them by their collars or scruffs to direct them. He appears irritated whenever I have questions for him, and he spends much of his time on his phone or doing minimal work, though to be fair, he is effective at breaking up the numerous dog fights that occur. He also expressed his anger towards me behind my back for submitting my 2-week notice. 2. Dogs themselves. The owner is exceedingly permissive about admitting dogs. I attempted to inquire whether there is any kind of assessment to determine if a dog would thrive in a daycare setting, but he did not respond, leading me to suspect that no such evaluation exists. Consequently, there are many aggressive dogs present. One particular dog has severe aggression issues, which can result in her tearing into the fur of another dog or even attacking people if she redirects her aggression. I've heard terrifying accounts of her inflicting serious injuries on other dogs. She has even left me with minor bruises after nipping at me. Other dogs have damaged 2 of my winter jackets, which I needed to discard. None of the dogs know basic commands, and with new dogs arriving frequently, we rarely learn their names. Thus, we resort to wielding our protection sticks to assert dominance over problematic dogs to prevent disasters, though something unfortunate seems to happen every day. They continue to accommodate dogs that bite and fight. We also witness many fearful dogs that tremble in corners during the 3-hour playtime, and the advice offered to help them is that it is simply their nature and that they will be fine. There are dogs that will leap the fences to the other side, instigating fights, while others engage in persistent fence fighting. The outdoor area has no tarping on the chain-link fence, so we must strategize our outdoor time to minimize chaos. We let the larger dogs out first, bring them back in, and then allow the smaller dogs outside to avoid any incidents, though some sort of drama happens inevitably. One person cannot manage such chaos. One individual supervising over 20 dogs, most of which are poorly trained and difficult, leaves too many unattended dogs inside while attempting to break up outside conflicts, among other hazardous scenarios. I have heard numerous accounts of individuals being attacked or bitten, with a dismissive attitude towards the issues, as if saying, "That's just how that dog is, we tolerate it." 3. No one seems properly trained to handle dogs. At a dog daycare, the guidance I receive regarding controlling misbehaving dogs includes holding them down firmly and shouting at them, or banging the protection stick on the ground to intimidate them. Yet, many of them remain unresponsive at times. Moreover, as I mentioned earlier, if a dog appears stressed and is not adapting well to the setting, the advice I'm given is to leave it be, asserting that it is fine. Is it acceptable for a dog to shiver in an overstimulating environment for 3 consecutive hours? Am I the one overreacting? Additionally, the misbehaving dogs are often rewarded for their inappropriate behavior, and everyone tolerates the dangerous dogs. I told them I would not work with certain large dogs due to their overwhelming nature, and I sensed disapproval, perhaps judging me as weak. When a dog refuses to comply, they merely drag it by the collar and shove it into uncomfortable kennels for breaks or boarding time. Though not every experience is negative, many dogs listen, and moving them room to room is manageable. The sight of how they're treated in moments of disobedience is heartbreaking. 4. The owner appears to have questionable judgment. I confronted him today, expressing that the environment we are in is quite perilous, noting that many dogs do not belong there and that improvement is essential, but not happening. I pointed out the dangers of having dogs with known aggression history and how it's unwise to allow those who bite staff members to remain. His response was along the lines of, "You simply need to project more confidence and assertiveness. If a dog misbehaves, the staff must know when to place them in a kennel." I explained that some dogs refuse to listen regardless of how confident we are, and for dogs that frequently misbehave during their daycare visits, it is unfair to expect us to kennel them repeatedly. He dismissed my concerns, claiming some staff members, and I should be among them, can demand respect from dogs. Like, seriously. This does not excuse the presence of dangerous animals. I told him, there are controllable ways to calm dogs, but I never received proper training. I was thrown in on my first day without guidance on how to manage fights or accost troublesome dogs. Essentially, I pressed the point that the head manager provided no training whatsoever. I was told there would be instructive videos to watch, and the manager would aid me as needed. However, that never materialized. The owner suggested that if I had asked questions, I would have obtained the necessary information. Therefore, it is seemingly my fault for my lack of knowledge due to not inquiring enough. Learning on the job how to handle stressed and aggressive dogs seems incredibly hazardous, which it is. I also mentioned that there is no type of barrier between the larger and smaller dogs in the outdoor section, which complicates managing the dogs effectively, and he responded, "That's why the designated leaders for small and large dogs need to collaborate to ensure they aren't all outside at the same time." Once more, the burdens of issues rest on me, suggesting I should have found ways to prevent things from going wrong. Not like a solid fence would address those concerns. He consistently deflected accountability for any issues I raised and treated the alarming conditions as normal, while insisting solutions were my responsibility to discover. 5. This may seem trivial, but we must post photographs of the dogs on Facebook following every 4-hour shift. We are instructed to only publish images that depict the dogs in a cheerful manner. Additionally, when a problematic dog is present, we must capture quick photographs to ensure the owners see their pets in a positive light. This feels deceitful, almost like a facade. Wouldn't the owners want to know if their dog spent the entire day fearful and shivering in a corner, or if their dog was involved in inappropriate behaviors? Many dogs sustain cuts and scrapes from interactions with others, but I am uncertain if these incidents are communicated to the owners. I genuinely do not know, and it is disheartening. 6. One of the dog groomers claims that there have been instances of her nearly losing her sight, which results in her cutting dogs' nails too short, causing them to bleed. Apparently, one dog had 4 nails that were cut so short they bled. The owner seemed to find humor in this situation, which is alarming. 7. The daycare also houses several rescue dogs without foster placements, so they are boarded in rooms and get some socialization during daycare hours. One dog has been repeatedly returned from foster homes for snapping at males, yet no new foster caretakers are informed of this behavior. He has previously snapped at a child and bitten someone's husband. Another foster dog is exceptionally erratic, disobeying commands while trying to tug at my sleeves, and has nearly caused harm to a cat at a previous foster home. I doubt the next incoming foster will be informed of that, either. 8. I am unsure of what else to say. There is so much wrong, and it is incredibly stressful. I witnessed my sister's friend's dog being housed there for 2 weeks, and it pains me to see that. I despise the environment. Is this typical? Is this the norm everywhere? Am I overthinking this? I genuinely don't know anymore. I feel guilty. I submitted my 2-week notice, eager to exit as soon as possible, but is this how it is meant to be? Am I overreacting? In summary, the daycare has a single person monitoring over 20 dogs, many of which are trembling in fear, while some show aggression. In just 2 months of employment, I've had 2 jackets destroyed and witnessed numerous dog fights, yet the manager and owner maintain that these conditions are standard. They offered no training. Instead, I was placed in a position of monitoring dogs, and the owner claims the shortcomings are my issue since I do not inquire enough. Long-term employees make me question whether the way this facility operates is considered typical, as otherwise, who would tolerate such an environment? Clearly, I see substantial flaws. My training for self-defense against aggressive dogs and the safety of others amounts to wielding a stick to intimidate them and block their actions, which doesn't truly work and feels unethical. I am not sure if the dog owners are ever informed about the true nature of their pets or whether their shy dogs are struggling, as we only share curated Facebook photos showing them when they are happy and active, as directed by the management. The head manager demonstrates sexist behavior, disparaging tasks as women's work, neglecting to perform certain duties. Many dogs engage in fence fighting, yet the owner refuses to install privacy screens, placing blame on the staff for not managing rotations of the dogs effectively to prevent such behavior. It's challenging to succinctly explain the numerous issues, but this seems to be a poor and hazardous workplace for both humans and dogs. I already have numerous bruises, and they appear deceptive to the pet owners placing their trust in us. Am I wrong for resigning, or is this the expected state of affairs? Story 2. I walked away from an emotional affair, realizing I was in love. Then I saw cheating everywhere, questioning reality and trust. Lessons learned. I realized that my friendship with a colleague was evolving into an emotional affair, so I confronted her about it. She denied it, and despite having developed feelings for her, I decided to walk away. Afterward, I started noticing infidelity everywhere, while grappling with self-doubt and questioning whether my perceptions were accurate or if I was simply disillusioned. I learned important lessons through this experience. I am a 27-year-old male and I formed a connection with a woman, also 27, at work. I was aware she had a boyfriend, a 35-year-old man pursuing a medical career. I have a number of female friends since I mostly work with women, so I didn't think much of befriending her. However, over the past 2 or 3 years, I had been focusing on self-improvement, which increased the attention I received from women. After obtaining her phone number, I spoke with her boyfriend about the possibility of joining the military. Following that conversation, she began texting me almost every day to chat or hang out. I was in a dark place at that time due to the recent loss of my sister to suicide, and she supported me in ways that some of my other friends did not. Notably, she even prepared meals for me twice, because she noted that I was snacking at work instead of bringing my own food. She exhibited numerous warning signs her father was a habitual cheater and was often absent. She was financially reliant on her boyfriends, had cheated in the past, experienced negative relationships, had a promiscuous history, and often had a victim mentality. We spent an increasing amount of time together, developing a strong connection with much in common. I am embarrassed to admit that many of our interactions were quite flirtatious. Approximately 3 months in, I went to her and her boyfriend's house for a furniture project, unaware that her boyfriend was out of town for a medical conference. We ordered food and started watching television, leading to an uncomfortable moment. It was cold, so we wrapped up in blankets, and her legs ended up draped over mine. I could sense she was waiting for me to make a move. At that moment, I realized we were crossing boundaries. I attempted to ease the tension and left, recognizing how precarious our situation had become. I must acknowledge my own role in this dynamic. I did flirt with her, but I assumed that flirtation with friends, particularly female ones, was usually harmless. The following day at work, I confided in another female friend about my mistakes, hoping she would accompany me along with the other coworker to gather her thoughts, while also believing that steering clear of one-on-one interactions would help maintain appropriate boundaries. Unfortunately, this did not work out as I planned. Although we began hanging out in groups, my other female friends picked up on the situation. This girl also began confiding in me about her relationship issues, and I deflected her inquiries to ask about her boyfriend instead, questioning why he never joined us and inquiring about the difficulties he faced. It became increasingly evident to her that I was trying to distance myself. Eventually, I realized that I had fallen in love for the first time. One day, a friend told me that this girl had expressed her frustration regarding how her male friends fell in love with her, claiming she was not flirty at all. When I learned this, I felt hurt not primarily because she didn't reciprocate my feelings, but because she seemed oblivious and refused to take responsibility, instead playing the victim. I started ignoring her, but she quickly noticed. I confronted her about our inappropriate friendship, leading to her denying the emotional affair and claiming that her boyfriend was aware of what happened on the couch and thought it was no big deal. I expressed to her that I had developed feelings and pressured her to acknowledge what she was receiving from me that she wasn't getting from her relationship. Eventually, she admitted it was time. She wished to remain friends, but I became angry, asserting that maintaining our friendship would be disrespectful to both her and her boyfriend. I spent months ignoring her because I felt manipulated and was in disbelief at her lack of accountability. However, before I departed for basic combat training, I decided to speak with her one final time. I told her that even though I still loved her, I could never condone cheating or jumping from one relationship to another. I wanted us both to take responsibility for the emotional affair we had created and discuss how our boundaries had broken down, concluding that my decision to walk away was the correct one. She continued to deny any wrongdoing, asserting that she had no feelings for me and that our encounter didn't breach any boundaries, claiming her boyfriend knew and didn't mind. I maintained my stance, stating that it was significant and all the flirting was inappropriate. I expressed skepticism regarding whether her boyfriend knew about our interactions. Even if he did, I felt it was worse that they both exhibited poor boundaries or seemed naive. She offered to let me call him, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not out of my own guilt, but because it was clear she was financially dependent on him and I didn't want her to be hurt. I told her it didn't matter whether she was lying or being truthful. Either way, it pointed to her boyfriend not caring enough or her not genuinely loving him if she was in an emotional affair while failing to recognize it. I asked her if she genuinely believed she was making the right choice by sticking with him, to which she responded affirmatively, claiming happiness. I conveyed my belief that she was sacrificing her integrity for financial security and was on a misguided path. I told her that, until she could take accountability, I could never accept her back into my life, and I subsequently blocked her on all platforms. This ordeal deeply affected me, I won't deny. I understand that some might argue I brought this upon myself, and they would not be entirely wrong. However, I genuinely believe my actions stemmed from carelessness. Whether you choose to believe me or not, I also encountered several other instances of infidelity and boundary violations that same year, and I believe I managed those situations appropriately. For instance, when I asked a woman for her number, she informed me that she had a boyfriend, but offered her Instagram instead. After some flirtation, I took my phone back, said no thanks, and stated that her boyfriend was fortunate. A female friend of mine whose boyfriend did not attend a dinner said to me, "You'll be my boyfriend's name for the evening." I responded directly, stating it was inappropriate to say. During basic combat training, I engaged in a tussle with a female soldier, only to discover she was engaged. I informed her that I had learned she was unfaithful, that it was unacceptable, and that we were finished. As a side note, the military harbors an alarming amount of infidelity. The key lesson I have drawn from these experiences is that if you find yourself attracted to someone who is emotionally wounded, it is likely that you also have unresolved issues, which could ultimately lead to mutual harm unless you recognize your need to heal first. The woman I struggled with is now engaged to her boyfriend, and as someone who once loved her, It was disheartening to realize she is potentially sacrificing her true self by marrying for financial reasons. If she truly loved him, she wouldn't have engaged in emotional infidelity. Equally, if he truly cared, he would have noticed her emotional detachment. While I am inclined to harbor negative feelings toward her for her actions, I find it difficult to let go of my concern for her well-being. However, I will never love her again or permit her back into my life. Ultimately, I want to request people's opinions and share my experience. Do you think she was right or wrong? Is she genuinely happy with her boyfriend, or is she heading toward an unhappy future? Do you believe she had no feelings for me, or was she lying, hoping to deflect the blame for my emotional involvement? I have become quite cynical regarding infidelity among women these days. While I have been achieving success in various areas of life and enjoying better experiences in dating, I have noticed that the current dating landscape can be toxic and unsettling. I have been attending therapy to address my personal flaws, and I am learning how to cultivate and select healthier relationships. With any luck, I hope to find the right partner. The final insight I have gained is that men must improve themselves, myself included, as we are the ones who need to become better men, partners, and fathers to positively influence society and shape our children's futures, so we do not continue to create broken and unhealthy individuals. I oppose the harmful effects of both feminism, which can distort young women's perceptions, and the red pill movement, which can negatively affect young men's views. I work and study in the field of psychology, and I assure you that genuine healthy relationships are not born from these extreme philosophies. If you want to explore how to establish such relationships in a healthy manner, I encourage you to look into Saadia Khan, as much of her advice is psychologically sound and statistically supported for cultivating healthy connections. Story 3. Found my wife passed out, her phone revealed 3 months of sexting with my coworker. OMG, how did it come to this? I want to begin by expressing that my wife, who is 49 years old, is my closest companion, and I love her deeply. However, her recent actions have led me to feel that I am no longer in love with her. I apologize for the lengthy explanation, but I have not shared this with anyone except for a few details with my parents. My wife struggles with unresolved trauma from experiencing sexual assault at the age of 12, battles depression, and openly admits to being an alcoholic. This issue runs in her family and has intensified in recent times. She wishes to quit drinking, but so far that has not materialized. She is skilled at concealing her drinking from most people, but I can typically detect when it is happening. This creates a significant conflict, as she transforms into a different person when she drinks, and I often confront her about it. She is driven while under the influence and has had several minor car accidents, some of which occurred with our children in the vehicle. Thankfully, she has not received any driving under the influence charges yet, but I would not be surprised if that changes. Although I have never been a heavy drinker, I have essentially ceased consuming alcohol altogether to remove it from our household. She buys wine when I am not present to satisfy her habit. Additionally, she has faced challenges in her career. At one point, she earned a substantial salary and was the primary breadwinner in our home. However, after a significant conflict with her superiors, she was compelled to take a side, which took a severe emotional toll on her. She attempted to start anew with the choice she made, but it ultimately did not work out. Consequently, she found herself unemployed and instantly felt inferior within our relationship, despite my reassurances that we were financially secure and otherwise well. Almost 2 years ago, I returned home late one night from a work trip to find her unconscious on the couch. At that time, she had been overly protective of her phone, which piqued my curiosity regarding what she might be hiding. When I checked her phone, I discovered a series of explicit messages with one of my coworkers that validated my worst suspicions. They had been meeting secretly while I was away for work, or even when I was at the gym. From my findings, it appeared this had been ongoing for at least 3 months. I took screenshots of everything I could find and saved them as potential evidence. Perhaps the most painful part of their exchange was a message in which she expressed that she did not know what it was, but that she loved him. He, however, seemed indifferent, showing no reciprocal feelings at that moment. I was in disbelief, unable to fathom that this was occurring. I never imagined she was capable of such betrayal. Against my better judgment, I chose to wake her and confront her right away. Still intoxicated, she broke down in tears. One of her first reactions was to mention that she secretly caught me viewing adult content one night some time ago and had consequently asked if I wanted to engage in intimacy. She explained that this made her feel unattractive, even though I believed our sexual life had been fairly typical for a couple of our age. While I do occasionally watch adult content out of boredom, I do not require it to ignite our intimate life. She is aware of this and has joined me in watching it from time to time. In the following days, as she became sober, she claimed that she had been perpetually intoxicated during the period when those meetings and explicit exchanges were occurring. I believe her on this account, as she genuinely transforms into a different person when under the influence, with her inhibitions entirely released. I was incredibly hurt, but chose to remain because the thought of disrupting our family was daunting, especially with our 3 children, all of whom were either teenagers or preteens at the time. I sincerely believed that she would harm herself if I chose to leave. Thus, I decided to stay. Then, about 4 months ago, I returned home to find her passed out once more. My diminished trust in her compelled me to check her phone again. It did not take long for me to uncover that she was engaged in explicit exchanges with yet another coworker, reminiscing about their previous encounters. This time, there were pictures and videos as well. I decided to keep this to myself initially and contacted my parents to share some details and seek advice. They did not instruct me on what actions to take, but offered support regardless of my decision. I reached out to a recently divorced friend for a recommendation for a lawyer. I attempted to call the attorney, but she did not answer. I left a message but never received a return call. Once home after leaving the message, I asked her how many men she had been with since our marriage. She lied, attempting to confess to only the one. The truth was that she had no recollection of texting this other man the night before. She was that inebriated. So, I confronted her using the man's name, and fear washed over her face as she realized I was aware. More tears flowed as she claimed she had not seen him in years. It turned out that this particular affair had occurred before the one I had discovered, and it also was not a fleeting encounter, as they had apparently met multiple times. However, she cannot recall the specifics. The message thread I found was an effort to rekindle the affair while she was intoxicated again. The man had asked if he could come to our house, and she had declined, stating that I was returning home soon. I felt an overwhelming numbness, an unshakable sensation of shock and betrayal. Trust cannot drop below 0, yet that is precisely how it feels. The fact that it occurred prior to the other affair did not lessen the hurt, especially since she lied, thinking there was no possible way I could have unearthed evidence of it. Fortunately, her drunken state proved too careless to take precautions. As I reflect on this, it seems painfully clear that I should simply divorce her. Yet, I find it challenging to discard the life I have built with her and for our children. I truly do not believe the kids are aware of everything that has been occurring, aside from the drinking issue. A divorce would undoubtedly disrupt our lives and those of our children. While I would prefer to have complete custody of the children to ensure their safety, my job still requires extensive travel, making it likely that she would receive shared custody unless I could alter my career entirely. She continues to drink, though not as excessively in recent times. She has initiated therapy, attempting to demonstrate her commitment to addressing her trauma and alcoholism. When she is sober, she is my closest companion, a loving partner, and a fantastic mother. In contrast, when she drinks, she becomes combative and displays a blatant disregard for anyone but herself and her own needs. Ultimately, I do not trust her, and I am uncertain if I ever will as long as she continues to drink, regardless of how infrequently it occurs. Nevertheless, I am inclined to make this work for the children's sake, at least for a few more years. I suspect that had the attorney returned my call, I might be in a different position. However, the additional time has afforded me the opportunity to reflect on what is best for myself and my family. Thank you for taking the time to read this if you have made it this far. I may benefit from therapy, as I clearly cannot seem to erase these troubling thoughts from my mind. I envision her with these other men and feel compelled to seek revenge, even though those individuals were likely only thinking with their baser instincts. Regardless, I am planning to inform their wives at some point, providing definitive evidence of the infidelity. They will not escape unscathed. That is all for now. I am unsure if I am seeking advice or not. I merely wanted to express some of these feelings. Thank you once again for listening.